Welcome to Social Elo Ministries, where we are committed to glorifying God while exposing the devil. In John 7:24, Jesus tells us not to judge by mere appearances, but to judge righteously. There are times when an enemy trespasses against us, and we take it to the righteous judge, the Lord, for judgment. But things don't always work out the way we think it's going to work out, at least not initially. In Job 42, we see where the Lord restored Job's herd, and he gave him twice as much as he had before. A lot of ministers call this double for you trouble. And that was in accordance with the Lord's words, because in Exodus 22, 1 through 9, it talks about when someone takes something that the thief should pay back twice as much as the person stole. So it's in keeping with the Lord's words that whenever something is stolen, that twice is restored. But a lot of times when people look at Job, they think, well, he went through a terrible situation and the Lord paid him back double for his trouble. And you may go through a situation you're thinking, the Lord's going to pay me back double for my trouble too. But the immediate response from the Lord is not quite what you expect. One of the reasons why Job was able to get double for his trouble is actually in Job 1 verse 1. And it states, "There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil." Job was perfect and upright, so he was a righteous man. When the Lord allowed the devil to afflict Job, and we see this in Job chapter 1 and chapter 2, it was a test. It was a test of Job's faith. So Job getting double for his trouble was in part because he was a righteous man and the devil trespassed against him. There are times when you're expecting double for your trouble and either you don't get it or you don't get it immediately. And a couple of things. Job wasn't inviting the devil into his life. There are times when you either knowingly or unknowingly invite the devil into your life. And him coming isn't him trespassing against you, it's him accepting your invitation. And you can say for that, you're not entitled to double for your trouble. An example of this, in 2 Samuel 11, David committed adultery. It also resulted in murder to cover up that adultery. He was judged in 2 Samuel 12. In 2 Samuel 13, in a sense, all hell started breaking loose in his family. It resulted in his daughter Tamar being violated. And then later his son Absalom chased him out of the kingdom. So all these things were happening. So with David getting afflicted, it wasn't because he was entitled to double for his trouble. It was because he had opened the doorway for the devil to come into his life. So you may not always be entitled to double for your trouble. In some cases, you're being afflicted because it's payback for something that you did. But if you're living righteously and an enemy truly trespasses against you, then yes, you are entitled to double for your trouble. But again, it does not always come in a way or in a time that you expect. Because sometimes you may find out that when you go to the Lord for him to pay the enemy back on your behalf, he doesn't focus on the enemy first. He focuses on someone else. And we see this in Matthew 7. And Matthew 7 verse 1, this scripture is taken out of context so many times to cover people's sin, but I actually won't get into that. But I'm going to read from verses 1 through 5, which states, and this is Jesus speaking, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine own eye, or out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out a beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. And I'm going to approach the scripture from a different way than you're probably used to. But in this context, there are times when you go to the Lord because you didn't do anything to invite the enemy into your life, but he came into your life anyhow, made a mess, and you're appealing to the Lord. Well, rather than the Lord focusing on the enemy at first, he focuses on you. And he tries to clear or clean you up, so to speak, before he addresses what the enemy does. Because one of the things I mentioned is that sometimes you unknowingly invite the enemy into your life. But if you're so busy saying the enemy did this, the enemy did that, you don't even get to notice what you did to invite the enemy into your life. And a part of the Lord focusing on you first is to ensure that you know how the enemy got into your life, and so you can close the door on the enemy in that way. If you're going to judge righteously, or if you want the Lord to judge righteously on your behalf, it helps for you to be righteous. Similar to how Job was a righteous man. There are times when you are living righteously, the enemy will come into your life, and whether it's because the Lord allows it, like he specified in Job 1 and 2, where the Lord allowed the devil to afflict Job within certain parameters, that could be a test for the Lord to use it. And I know this may sound like a legal presentation, in a case it is, because in a lot of ways, the devil tries to find loopholes to get into your life. And the Lord will expose those loopholes so you can close the door. So this is about closing those loopholes so that if you are afflicted, you can go to the Lord and say, the enemy did this, and I need for you to vindicate me. I need for you to provide restitution. If you're living righteously and you're afflicted, oftentimes it is so that the Lord will have a legal grounds to elevate you. So going through the furnace of affliction is a good thing. But again, if you're not living so righteously, you may find out that rather than the Lord attacking the enemy on your behalf, initially, he will look at you. And we'll see another example of this in John 8, 1 through 11. The Pharisees, they brought a lady who had been caught committing adultery. And they wanted Jesus to judge her. And I'm not going to read the scripture directly because you probably know it already. They were ready to stone her to death, which was the lawful thing to do under circumstances. But there are some issues associated with that too, but I won't get into that case. But Jesus said, let who is without sin cast the first stone. That's what the Lord will do to you sometimes. You're pointing out someone else's sins, and he'll point out yours. And it's not to say that if you're sinning that you can't point out someone else's sins, but the Lord will address you first before the enemy. And if you are in fact entitled to double for your trouble, in time it will come. In time it will come. But in Exodus 22, 1 through 9, it doesn't say that you have to be living righteously in order to get double for your trouble. The enemy comes but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And when he comes to do that, he's going to pay a price. So even if the Lord looks at you first and addresses issues with you first, it does not mean that he's not going to address issues to the enemy on your behalf. In a lot of cases, some of you have lost things, but all hope is not lost because the enemy found a loophole to get into your life. But it still doesn't mean that whatsoever he stole, that he's entitled to keep. And you may in fact be due for double for your trouble. Because we may not always agree with how he judges, but the Lord is a righteous judge. God bless you.